Today, we're diving into the incredible biological engineering that holds us all together. We're talking about the architecture of movement.
It's a funny question, but it gets right to the point, doesn't it? The reason you have a shape, the reason you can stand up against gravity and, walk across a room, it's all thanks to this amazing internal framework. So, how does this whole thing actually work? Well, let's dive in and break it down.
All right, here's the plan. We're going to start with the three basic blueprints for movement. Then we'll zoom in on the human skeleton itself. After that, we'll see how muscles make us move, check out how other animals do it, and finally, we'll talk about how to take care of your own personal framework.
Okay, so first things first, we gotta understand that when it comes to the problem of support, nature didn't just come up with one solution. Nope, there are a few core designs out there, a few different ways to build a body.
So why even have a skeleton in the first place? Well, it's not just about having a shape. It really boils down to three absolutely crucial jobs. First, movement. I mean, you got to be able to find food and get away from danger, right? Second, support. It's what keeps you from being a puddle on the floor, holding your shape against gravity. And third, protection. It's basically a built-in suit of armor, shielding all those soft, important organs inside.
So, like I said, nature has three main blueprints for this. You've got the hydrostatic skeleton. Think of an earthworm. It's super clever. It just uses internal fluid pressure to hold its shape. Then there's the exoskeleton, which is basically wearable armor, like what you'd see on a crab or any insect. And finally, there's the one we've got, the endoskeleton. That's the internal framework of bone and cartilage you find in all vertebrates, including us, of course.
Okay, so now let's zoom in on the design we all know best, our own. It's time to really take a close look at this amazing internal scaffolding that we call the human skeleton. So our skeleton is really elegantly divided into two main parts. First up is the axial skeleton. Just think of this as the central pillar, or the core of your body. That's your skull, your spine, and your ribs. Then you've got the appendicular skeleton, and that's pretty much everything else that hangs off that central core. Your arms, your legs, and the shoulder and pelvic girdles that hook them all together.
And at the very core of that core is our backbone, the vertebral column. It's built from these individual little building blocks called vertebrae. Now, they come in different shapes and sizes, but they all share the same basic layout. A main body called the centrum, a little tunnel to protect the spinal cord, and these bony bits that stick out, the processes, which are basically just anchor points for all your muscles. And this is a perfect example of that old saying, form follows function. Just look at the centrum. That's the main weight-bearing part. See how it gets bigger and bigger the further down the spine you go? It makes total sense. The cervical vertebrae in your neck are small and light because they need to be flexible. The thoracic ones in your chest are a bit bigger to connect to your ribs. And the lumbar vertebrae, down in your lower back, they're huge. They have to be. They're holding up the entire weight of your upper body. Okay, so bones give us the structure, but they'd be pretty useless on their own, right? You need connections, and that's where joints come in. Now, we have some joints that don't move at all, like the plates in your skull. But check this out. A whopping 70% of our joints are freely movable. That's the secret sauce right there. That's the key to our amazing range of motion. So let's crack one open, metaphorically, of course. Let's look inside a typical hinge joint, like your elbow. It is just a beautifully designed little machine. You've got cartilage acting as this perfect shock-absorbing cushion. You've got the synovial membrane, which is like a little factory pumping out lubricating fluid to keep everything moving smoothly. But what holds it all together? And how does it connect to the engine? Well, that's where two other crucial parts come into play. All right, this is a big one. People get these mixed up all the time. Ligaments versus tendons. Here's the deal. Ligaments connect bone to bone. They're elastic and strong. They provide stability. Tendons connect muscle to bone. They're tough, fibrous, and not very stretchy. Just think of tendons as the heavy-duty cables that pull on the bones when your muscles fire up. Okay, so we've got the frame, we've got the connections. Now it's time to talk about the engine. How do our muscles actually make us move?
So here's the secret, and it's actually super simple. Muscles can only pull. They can't push. Ever. Because of that one rule, they have to work in pairs, what we call antagonistic pairs. Let's take your forearm. To bend your elbow, your bicep contracts, it's the flexor, and pulls your forearm up. At the exact same time, your tricep relaxes. And to straighten your arm,
You guessed it, the exact opposite happens. The tricep contracts, it's the extensor, and the bicep relaxes. It's this beautiful, simple dance of pull and release that powers literally every single move you make.
Now, this basic idea, a skeleton for support and muscles to move it, that's not just a human thing. It's a universal solution across the entire animal kingdom. But oh man, the adaptations are incredible. So let's zoom out and see how different animals have engineered this system to conquer land, sea, and even the air.
All right, first up, let's dive into the water. When you look at a fish swim, what you're really seeing is this powerful, rhythmic S wave that flows down its entire body. It's mesmerizing. So what's the engine for that wave? It's these really cool W-shaped blocks of muscle called myotomes. Just picture a whole chain of tiny motors running all the way down the fish's body. They fire in this perfect sequence, contracting head to tail, first on the left, then on the right. This creates that powerful whip-like motion that shoves water backward and shoots the fish forward. And the fins? They're just there for steering and stability, like rudders on a boat.
Okay, so from the water, let's hop onto land, and I mean that literally. Let's check out how a grasshopper uses its exoskeleton and that very same principle of opposing muscles to create an absolutely explosive jump.
Sound familiar? It's just like our own arm, but on a different scale. First, the flexor muscle contracts, and it folds that huge hind leg up into a tight Z shape. It's basically loading a spring. Then, bam, the massive extensor muscle contracts violently, the leg snaps straight, and the grasshopper is launched into the air.
And for our last stop, let's take to the skies. You know, flight is the ultimate challenge, right? You have to generate a ton of power, but you also have to be incredibly lightweight. Birds crack this code with a specialized muscle system attached to a super light, hollow endoskeleton.
The engine of flight really comes down to a powerful pair of chest muscles working in opposition. You've got the huge pectoralis major, that's the power muscle. It contracts and pulls the wing down with incredible force, creating lift. But then how does the wing get back up? That's the job of the smaller pectoralis minor, and it uses this brilliant little pulley system, looping a tendon over the shoulder to pull the wing back up super efficiently, ready for the next power stroke.
Wow, so after seeing all of this incredible biological machinery in other animals, it really brings it all back home, doesn't it? It makes you think, how do we maintain our own personal musculoskeletal machine so it lasts a lifetime?
You know, the advice is actually pretty simple, but now we really understand why it's so important. A balanced diet with things like calcium and vitamin D, that's literally the raw material to build and repair your endoskeleton. Regular exercise, that strengthens not just the muscles, but the bones and ligaments they're pulling on. Good posture? Well, now you know that's all about keeping your vertebral column happy and preventing unnecessary strain. Even wearing the right shoes makes a difference. It supports that entire chain of movement all the way up your body.
Look, at the end of the day, understanding all this, it isn't just for a science test. It's about really, truly appreciating the incredible, dynamic machine that you get to pilot every single day of your life. So the question is simple. Your body is your ultimate machine. How will you move it today?